Good morning and welcome to episode 14 of the Driver's Debrief. I'm your host, Nicholas Patty, and this episode is coming to you a little bit late this morning, just a wee bit, but I was slept clean through all my alarms, and thanks to my wife, you're getting episode 14 because she woke me up and reminded me I had to get up and do this. I was totally out, just gonna sleep clean through it. But we have a fresh pot of coffee. We have some F1 news, some F1 Academy results to talk about as well, plus a plethora of more driver market car entry announcements and more bankruptcy drama. That's everyone's favorite. So buckle up and get ready to join me on this ride that is episode 14 of the Driver's Debrief. If you like what you watch, if you like this episode, please make sure to like and subscribe when it's uploaded to YouTube or to Rumble for its playback. We also have this that will be recorded on X, so you can watch it here on X, you can like it, and obviously repost it and share with your friends. If you're watching here on X, please make sure to follow. A lot of this news is stuff I repost, I curate throughout the week from a variety of sources, and then I put it together at the end of the week for this episode all at once. So if you want to stay minute to minute up to date with this content, make sure to follow on X at Drivers Debrief. So we don't have much car stuff to talk about in terms of automotive news updates. Other than Top Gear did an amazing video comparing the Ferrari 12 Cylindri, yes, the 12 cylinder, which is obviously the 812 Superfast replacement. They compared that to the new Aston Martin Vanquish, which is one of the best looking, best sounding cars I have seen in a well, since the Aston Martin Valkyrie, but then for a long time. Jethro Bovington, who's an excellent reporter, journalist in the automotive space, he gave the win to Aston Martin on it. Just all around GT car, rowdiness, everything. Aston Martin won it. So definitely go check that out. It's like a 30-minute video. It's on the Top Gear YouTube channel, and I think they just posted it yesterday. But we have a lot of cool down room news. And we had an interesting Qatar GP, and we'll get into that obviously when it comes to the results and some of the talking points. So if you don't hear something you think I'm about to say, just wait till the talking points. I can tell we're gonna blow through this episode. All right, Franco Colapinto has been rejected by VCarb. However, now Williams is trying to sign him. This comes amidst. Well, so Colapinto came in, right, to fill the seat for Williams. And it was like, oh, okay, this kid's pretty good. And then it led to some like, oh, now everybody wants Franco Colapinto. Red Bull's talking to him. VCarb's talking to him. Mercedes is looking into him. Alpine, everybody wanted him. But since he kind of Logan Sargent himself with accidents, I think people are starting to see, oh, maybe he's not as consistent as we thought. I mean, he's had 3 crashes in the last 2 weekends. Oh, excuse me. 3 crashes in the last 2 weekends, which, again, couldn't do any better myself. A lot of people couldn't. But when you're one of these teams, you're looking at not only the good performances, but the bad, and then the cost-benefit of that. Whatever he might have gotten Williams in points, he might have offset by damages. So Toyota World Endurance Champion Ryo Hirakawa will be driving Oscar Piastri's McLaren in FP1 this week, which I think is insane. I think that's super cool. Ryo Hirakawa, obviously a champion in WEC, but a fairly stable part of Toyota's driver lineup in the number 7 car. He's going to be doing some F1 testing, which I think is super cool. Unless I totally missed it, I don't remember there being kind of rumors or speculation that he might try to make a play at testing or having any involvement with F1. I know he's appeared with McLaren before. Zach Brown and everybody in their McLaren shirts, trackside. So maybe he is a test driver for McLaren. I can't remember. But that all being said, if I can't remember, then a lot of people probably didn't know. So there you go. This next one is pretty interesting, and it kind of scares me because I want more from my friends at Cadillac, but we'll see how this goes. According to Formula Racers, who's just a Twitter source, but he's been right about almost everything. Just saying. Everything he's said has come to fruition. He is saying that Zhou Guanyu is a leading choice for Cadillac F1. Which, if that's the case, please stop letting sponsorship dollars dictate who you choose. Cadillac, in case you don't know, you're paid for by government subsidies. My taxes are helping pay for this F1 team. Which, if anything, is pretty cool because I can say, even though it's not really realistic, that I'm a part owner. I'm a fractional investor in Cadillac F1 team. You're welcome. Ocon is not going to race for Alpine next weekend. Not. He's been released so that he can be in Haas's post-season test after Abu Dhabi. Keep in mind the postseason tests are done by the drivers of the teams that they're currently on. So by Alpine releasing Ocon, he's now able to do this. If Ocon participated in Abu Dhabi with Alpine and then the next day on Monday woke up, he would have to do the postseason test for Alpine. So that's why they're doing that. And as such, McDowell is stepping up for his F1 Grand Prix debut. And I believe he will then also do the postseason test for Alpine. The Qatar Investment Authority has bought a stake in Audi F1. Qatar Investment Authority is really just a fancy way of saying the Qatar government. They have this investment authority to kind of spend the government's money on things that would be interesting, could help the country, could help bring in revenue, and that's what they've done here. This one was bizarre. This next bit of news, it was bizarre, but I think the FIA's response to it was even more bizarre. This coffee is excellent, by the way, if you couldn't tell. So, race steward, longtime chief race steward, Tim Mayer, has been sacked, and it was by text, literally randomly last week. Like, he woke up one day, there was a text on his phone from Ben Sulayem, and he said, hey, by the way, you're fired. Pack your stuff and get out. Which this led to, humbly, I would say a lot of backlash. Not just in my echo chamber, but everywhere. Lee Diffie was talking about how he knows Tim Meyer back from the kart days, pre-unified IndyCar. And he thinks this is one of the most ridiculous kind of personnel decisions you could possibly have when it comes to the world of motorsport, because Tim is so dedicated to racing, to motorsports. He's thoroughly knowledgeable. So I don't understand why, and a lot of people don't, they would end up firing him. Tim Mayer said that the FIA is going to run out of people. They're going to run out of people to do the job. Meaning that the FIA is firing and hiring so consistently that they're going to run out of people to fire and hire because nobody's going to want the job. So that's, I think, accurate. But unfortunately, it's not something that I think the FIA is going to listen to. That being said, I have breaking news. As of 2 hours ago. Breaking news. As of 2 hours of this recording. The new Jaguar EV has been leaked. The Jaguar that this whole silly marketing campaign was designed around the launch of. It is the Jaguar CT. I'm about to sneeze. Hold on, chat. Excuse me. It's apparently a 575 horsepower EV that is a 2026 luxury saloon. And it's targeting the Porsche Taycan at around 100,000 pounds and more. Apparently, the full release was supposed to be tonight. But the Jaguar CT has been leaked. And it looks hideous. It looks hideous. I gotta tweet about this now. So this is if you follow me on X, you'll see this post, and you and we can all chat in the replies and figure out what we think of it. That all being said, let's go back to the FIA. So Tim Mayer was fired. He was sacked. Ben Solayem then comes out amongst all this backlash, people saying, why would you do this? This is a stupid decision. I can't believe you'd fire Tim Mayer. Whatever you think of race stewards, it's not the chief steward's fault all the time, right? It's a team of stewards. Tim Mayer, Mohammed Ben Solayem said, we don't have to explain ourselves to you. He was saying that we don't have to, when teams have personnel changes, the FIA doesn't ask the teams, well, why'd you fire them? Well, why'd you do that? But I think what Ben Solayem doesn't understand is the teams are the competitors. You're the series. You owe it to the fans to explain why you've decided to fire somebody that affects what the product is, which is us. If Red Bull fires a technical director, it may or may not affect the team. And that effect on the team may or may not have an effect on the car. And that effect on the car may or may not have an effect on their placement on the grid. Okay, so it may not really actually affect what we see. But if you're the chief steward, that affects what we see on track. That affects the product, which is the racing. And I think as kind of collective shareholders, as we as fans are entitled to kind of having an understanding of how this is working, I think we actually do deserve an explanation. And I'll just say this. I was on board with Ben Solayem's hiring originally. But I think he's undone all the goodwill I had. There's no, his defense is, well, I'm a driver. I get it. And it's like, yeah, but you were a driver 25 years ago and you were in a different discipline. And so I think there's a little bit of a difference there. Meaning, like, if Sebastian Ogier came over and said, hey, Max, let's talk about kind of our experiences. Obviously, they're going to overlap a ton. They're going to be very different too. So, sure, I'm a driver too. I've done 3 Porsche club weekends in a Porsche Cup car. Okay, I'm a driver. That doesn't mean that all of a sudden my decisions are immune to criticism because I'm a driver, so I get it. No, I don't. I can only understand what might be going on track. As a driver, that does not give me any benefit into personnel staffing decisions. He's an idiot. I'm sorry, Ben Solayem. He's just an idiot. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand it. Because and it goes back to Jean Todt, but before him, who was the French head of the FIA when Senna was driving, Senna and Prost? I can't remember. But it's this extreme, unapologetic arrogance by the FIA of, well, we're the FIA. We don't owe you or anyone anything. We're going to make our decisions because we're the FIA and we decide what's what. And it's like, okay, I guess. But you're not going to endear fans to you when, if you look on X, it is just people complaining about cheating and things being rigged and corruption. And so maybe you might want to take into account some fans' feedback on certain things. No, just me. All right, cool. So that's the news there. Bottas is joining Sebastian Vettel and Mick Schumacher for the 2025 Race of Champions. On a bit of a more somber note, Mary McGee, who you may remember from I think it was Coda last year. She was the sweet old lady, former driver driver and writer who was a big Lewis Hamilton fan. She passed away at the age of 87. She was the only woman to have finished the Baja 500 solo, and she was the first woman to do the Baja 1000. So thoughts and prayers with her family and her friends. I hope that they can have some support through this period. Bentley is returning to sports car racing with Team Parker Racing as they field a Continental GT3 in the Dubai 24 Hours in January. Cool Racing, who's the LMP2 team from European LMS and Le Mans, will now be known as CLX Motorsports. Fred Makovicky will be joining Alpine's hypercar squad after being released from Penske Porsche, and Jules Gounon steps up from his reserve role to a starting driver role for Alpine and Hypercar. I think this is pronounced GOU, G-O-U. GOU Racing is the first Seat Cupra customer team for Cupra. By the way, I didn't say Cooper. Cupra customer team in IMSA for 2025 in the Michelin Pilot Challenge in the TCR class. In MotoGP news, KTM has been reported as being $2.9 billion in debt. So this leads me to the first conversation question of the podcast, which is, can KTM be saved? Can this brand, who has a fairly storied history in MotoGP, but more storied history in other forms of motorcycle racing, can they be? Obviously, there's companies with billions of dollars that could bail them out. Is anyone gonna want to? So let me know. Let me know below what you think. I am still trying to multitask and post about this Jaguar leak. Yeah, that's where we're at. Let's go back to our next news point. The new Brembo MotoGP calipers were tested last week by Marc Marquez and Pecco Bagnaia. They are expected to be tested by some other teams here on the MotoGP grid. Formula E races are now free to watch, but they've removed the paywall, and now you can watch them on ITV in the UK. Some IndyCar news. Michael Cannon joins Prema IndyCar team as head of engineering for 2025. Mid-Ohio is starting extensive track updates, including modifications to Turn 4. And then in NASCAR, Tony Breidinger, who you'll know from Raising Cane's and Women in Driving campaigns and stuff like that. She'll be a full-time NASCAR Truck Series driver with Tricon Garage in the number 5 car after her last year in the ARCA Menard series. Moving on to our race, let's look at the Formula One. I guess we'll do sprint results first. This one was kind of interesting. Let's just blow through it. Sergio Perez in last, Jaguar EV in 19th, Franco Colapinto 18th, Yuki Tsunoda 17th, Liam Lawson 16th, Alex Albon 15th, Ocon 14th, Stroll 13th, Bottas 12th, 11th was Fernando, 10th was Kevin Magnussen, 9th Pierre Gasly, 8th Verstappen, 7th Hulkenberg, 6th Hamilton, 5th Leclerc, 4th Sainz, 3rd Russell, 2nd Lando Norris, and 1st place Oscar Piastri. Moving on to the race. The race result looked a little different. We had Hulkenberg, Perez, Stroll, Colapinto, and Ocon all DNF. We had Alexander Albon a lap down, and then in 14th, Liam Lawson, 13th, Yuki Tsunoda, 12th, Lewis Hamilton, 11th, Valtteri Bottas, 10th, Lando Norris, 9th, Kevin Magnussen, 8th, Zhou Guanyu, 7th, Padre, Fernando Alonso, 6th, Carlos Sainz, 5th, Pierre Gasly, 4th, George Russell, 3rd, Oscar Piastri, 2nd, Charles Leclerc, and in 1st place, your 4-time Formula One world champion, Max Verstappen. This race had another bit of drama, as all F1 races seem to have this year. It seems like every single race, there is some sort of drama or penalties or should have been penalties or reviews or on-track accident. It's a shame. So let's talk about the drama from this race. So Max had a pretty quiet race out front. A pretty uneventful race. He had just defend on a restart from Lando. There were some times where it was a bit close. Lando was about 2 seconds off Max for a majority of the race until let me back up. A mirror, I think it was Albon's car, a mirror had fallen off one of the driver's cars. That mirror was sitting on the front straight, which is the only passing zone. People are complaining that the race steward should have brought the VSC. Somebody goes out and gets the mirror and then comes back, off track to retrieve it, be safe, everything. I actually disagree, but let's ignore that. So there was a mirror, there was a local yellow on the straight, a zone yellow. With yellows, you're supposed to lift or slow in the yellow flag zone and then resume speed when you get back to green flags. That is a universal rule in all of motorsport, from SCCA, SVRA, NASA, to Porsche Club Racing, to Porsche Carrera Cup, Ferrari Challenge, Lamborghini Super Trofeo, to IMSA Pilot Challenge, WEC, Asian Le Mans Series, Super GT. Those are the rules everywhere in the world, go-karting and up. Those are the rules. And yet, Lando Norris ignored that rule when he was coming down the front straight. Max lifts. He checks his mirrors. Obviously, you're lifting. You want to make sure the guy in the rear doesn't, rear end you. And Max sees Lando close on him. And then the delta drops by 0.6 of a second. So Lando's closed 2/3 of a second on Max. Max radios into his team saying, hey, did Lando slow for the yellow flags? They look at his, the data. He did not slow. He gets a 10-second stop and go penalty. So there's two, and I'm going to walk through this slowly for any of the Lando fans out there that are watching this that want to start throwing hands. So there's the punishment for the penalty, and then there's the penalty itself. So the penalty, I shouldn't say the penalty itself, the infraction. He was busted on the infraction. You have to slow down in yellow flag zones. He did not. It is inarguable, as there is throttle traces proving he didn't. Not only can you prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt, it is certain what happened. It was a safety concern, right? The yellow flags could be you have crew, or you have trackside support, outside the fence. You have a driver who's stranded in a car. You could have a driver who's getting out of his car. You could have all sorts of things happening, and that's why the yellow flag is waved. Keep in mind, I know they don't have emergency recovery vehicles on track anymore, but Jules Bianchi passed away. It was the cooldown lap, but the cooldown lap in F1 is under waved yellows, right? So that's a scenario in which you can have horrible things happen under a yellow flag. So it's a clear-cut rule. You have to slow. It was clearly proven. There was no judgment call. There was no subjectivity. There was no was he or wasn't he. He was speeding, and he did not slow down through the yellow flag zone. It is of a safety concern, which means those penalties or those infractions have heavier consequences than a leaving the track and gaining an advantage. That's not a safety concern. That's just for the fairness of the sport. You have those three factors when it comes to giving out a penalty. Clear-cut, proven, safety concern. For the 5-second penalty that you get for leaving the track and gaining an advantage, that is subjective to a degree. Did he gain an advantage that then he gave up, a corner later or two? If he goes off the track on the outside, sure, he may have increased his exit speed, but it may have screwed him up for the next corner. So is that gaining an advantage, right? There's a bit of subjectivity there. A bit. I'm not saying it's entirely, but there's a bit of subjectivity there. And it is not a safety concern. It is a fairness penalty, right? That's how these penalties break down. There's penalties to ensure safety, like pit lane penalties, stuff like that. There's sport and competition fairness penalties. So that's a 5-second penalty, and that's a time penalty without the pit lane. Here's the thing. Everybody on X is saying, well, they've had this penalty, right? They've had the 10-second drive-through, and they haven't given it in 2 years. Why is that the case? Name the last time someone ignored yellow flags in a racing environment. In F1. I can't remember. There's been ignoring yellow flags in practice or qualifying or whatever. I can't remember the last time there's been an ignoring the yellow flags in a race. I just can't. And on top of that, this is one of those penalties that is a slam dunk. There are yellow flags. You have to slow down. Well, but the penalty was too harsh. You are driving in the pinnacle of world motorsport. And if you want me to feel bad because you got a penalty for something that is painfully obvious, then I can't help you. Listen. In penalty discussions past, in previous episodes, What have we talked about? Well, depending on where the car is placed, who's ahead at the apex, well, it looks close. Those are all conversations where there's a healthy two-sided, I see it this way, you see it that way, okay, agree to disagree. There is none of that in this case. So there should be a more harsh penalty because it is clear. It is clear. He deserved a penalty. He doesn't know whether or not he's endangering the safety of other people, right? But he's still ignoring the yellow flags. I don't know what to tell you. If that isn't an infraction that deserves a harsh, deterring penalty, do you think Lando's going to make that mistake ever again? No. Cost him way too much. He'll never make that mistake again. Also, the effect of the penalty wouldn't have been as bad if it wasn't right after a restart with the field bunched up together, right? Okay, so to me, that's the penalty. Let's not talk about the mirror on track. People were saying should have been a safety car, VSC, go out there and get the mirror. I agree, but at the same time, I also think that's what the Debrief flag is for, the striped red and yellow flag. If you wave that on the front straight, it's telling drivers, hey, the conditions, the surface, there is a bit of debris. There's something on track in this area that you need to be alert for and be careful with. I mean, that's kind of what that flag is there for. And the only reason I kind of lean towards that is because NASCAR is the opposite problem. There might have been a French fry that was thrown on track by a fan. We're going to yellow the whole field, bunch them all up, and then we'll restart. And to me, I just would be worried about F1 becoming that way. If it's any time there's any debris on track, we, yellow it and bring everybody back together. That's all I'm worried about. I'm not really going to I'm not going to die on that hill. But let me know what you think with Lando's penalty. I assume a lot of y'all are going to think it was way too harsh, but I'm curious to see what side of that y'all land on. Let's talk about a bit more F1 Academy. Abby Pulling is your champion with Abu Dhabi still remaining on the calendar. Abby Pulling driving for Alpine's supported F1 Academy program. Obviously, she wins the championship with a race to go. But this last week, Dorian Pin won with the Mercedes, I think it's Prema, at Losail. And that's cool because obviously Dorian came from the sports car. What am I trying to say? Sports car grid, sports car field from Iron Dames and World Endurance Championships. That's cool. Happy to see that success. And we'll look forward to seeing the last race of F1 Academy at Abu Dhabi. That all being said, ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 14 of the Driver's Debrief. I'm happy y'all have been able to join me. Remember, we go live every single Monday at 8 a.m. Central Time, recapping the weekend's news and the week before. Any midweek drama, speculation, automotive news, we cover that, plus the weekend's racing news. And then we publish that every Monday live here on X, or we upload to YouTube and to Rumble at Driver's Debrief. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment on a few of those conversation questions with your thoughts, as I'd love to have a conversation with you all and get to know what y'all's thoughts are on the many issues and controversies we have in motorsports. But until next week, thank you very much and have a great rest of your week. I'll see you soon. Bye now.